Hello everyone, from my one tier, otherwise known as Patrick, and this is the Gath tier list. I'm just gonna go right into it. I've explained everything in the Erengard list. Excuse me. First, Argog. Reflexes. I think Reflexes is A tier. And just giving him Counter Strike is just incredibly powerful. It's only 1 gold. Baseline is 4 damage back. So, in the off chance you do lose Argog, might as well kill the thing that killed him. So I think just A tier is just very nice. Swift Strike. I would say Swift Strike's probably his best ability, just because it gives him charging and piercing. I just wish it wasn't -1 movement in a way. I think I could just go up to 3 gold and take out the -1 movement, but I just think it's incredibly powerful just because it's a very cheap source of charging. It's just in my opinion. Though it's really hard to rate Argog because all of his abilities are strong in their own way and very niche. Omnisash again, A tier. Uh, once if you get this off, you can literally just kill the whole team. Only downside is that it requires very specific positioning, tanks everyone around him. So if you get a good one off, essentially that's it. Actually, I think I would actually rank Reflexes as his best now that I'm thinking about it, just because you can pretty much just put him on any Argog list and it's going to be amazing. It's only 1 gold. Like 4 damage Counter Strike is just absurd. And I think the main reason is Argog has 3 mana and all of his abilities cost mana. I don't know why. I think he could use a non-mana ability, but he does. So. And Inner Vitality, I would kind of actually put as B just for one specific reason. Uh, he has to be done on his turn. So your opponent might just force you to use Argog before you want to use him. Argog already has a ton of mana abilities. I don't think he just needs 3 mana abilities. It's so intensive on Argog for whatever reason. Uh, but anyway, yeah. Inner Vitality, the main reason is just because you have to use it on his turn. I wish it was actually at the start of round so that you can heal him without taking his turn up. It's kind of a pseudo health regen at that point, but the fact your opponent can force you to use Argog when you don't want to use him can really put you between a rock and a hard place where you want to save him to kill another unit, but you can't because he's at 1 health and you need to use Inner Vitality 3 and you need to use him now. So, that's the main reason I do that. But yeah, very mana intensive makes him really hard to use, but his base stats are just out the wazoo, so I would rank him there. Karthul, Battle Fury, I would actually say is A tier. It's very niche because, as you can tell, the fact that it sets a unit's health to 1 is a very big downside. When it's good, but not every Karthul wants to run Battle Fury. I think it's still very solid. When you're in the Battle Fury Karthul list, it's going to be incredibly powerful and impactful. Spell Shock. The only reason I'm putting it in B is because people know about Spell Shock, and they're not going to run 20 mana units. They're usually going to run like 3, 4 at the max when against Karthul. So Spell Shock loses its value once people know about it. I still think it's strong. If the enemy relies on a lot of spellcasters, it's good. I just say B just because your opponent can easily play around it, and it's kind of niche on when it's going to be used, but it's still strong. And again, only reason it's B is just because your opponent sees it. I don't want to run against Spell Shock, so I'll only run like 2 mana users, 3 mana users, and deal with it from there. run a couple units. I don't care that get spell shocked, and might have ways of dealing with it easily. Chain Lightnings is, I say, A tier. Baseline, it's really not that good because it's only 2 range, but usually if you're running Chain Lightning, you're running the item that increases your casting range, which makes Chain Lightning incredibly good. Chain Lightning is essentially just a, hey, if you walk here, you're gonna die. If you run more than 2 units here, I will win the game. So kind of like Omni Slash, Chain Lightning is a, I can literally win right here, right now, and your opponent has to constantly look out for it. But baseline, it can just be deal a ton of damage. Like Chain Lightning 1, if you really want to, you can just be spend 1 mana, deal 2 damage. It's not bad. Chain Lightning can be. Chain Lightning 2 is 2 mana, deal 3. It's not terrible. Chain Lightning 3, same thing. Just deal 4, kill a guy. It's not terrible. And it really forces your opponent to just position themselves in suboptimal locations. So I would say Chain Lightning is pretty good. And then Lightning Bolts, I would say, is his best ability. Just because it's so flexible in what it can do. You can just have Carthul just Lightning Bolt and it's gonna be good. You can just slot a Lightning Bolt into any. Like, if you just want to run Chain Lightning, well, I would say just put in a Lightning Bolt 1. Just so that he has something to do. If you're gonna run Battle Fury or Spell Shock, Carthul, just put in a Lightning Bolt just so that it uses up his mana. It's very effective with all items. It's a ton of damage for very cheap. Carthul has 5 mana, so it's like 2-3 uses on all of these. And Lightning Bolt 1, like it's free. So I actually recommend just running Lightning Bolt 1 in every single list. But the other Lightning Bolts are just incredibly solid, and I would say Lightning Bolt's his best ability. Alright, and again, cheapest to lowest. Bomb, I'm putting him in S tier. Simply put, I think he has too much range. It's super annoying trying to position yourself in a way to where the bomb doesn't just say, hey, I'm going to deal 2 damage to you, and you're going to die next turn. You can usually run like 8 of these, and it's still going to be good, which is absurd. I don't think you should be able to run 8 of a unit and have it not be complete dog shit. But if you run 8 bombs, it's still going to be S tier. It's incredibly strong. Just, who cares if they die? You're dealing 2 damage, you're probably going to kill the thing. It's just super cost efficient in how much it costs. Lackey, I would put in B tier. I'd probably put him in S tier too, just because there's a big problem with Gath's cheap units. Essentially, again, you can just mass these and have them not be dog shit. You can run 8 Goblin Lackeys and they're still going to be good. Sure, it has 1 health and Gladehawk and stuff kills it, but the fact you can just say, hey, heal that guy for 1. Hey, I'm going to charge you for 2 damage. Hey, get an extra power, guy. You can easily just mass these and have them be incredibly good. And it's really annoying, in my opinion, just how effective these 2 gold units are in Gath's army. Spike Hound, I was actually putting B. Compared to these other 2, he kind of just plays a straight game. He wants to threaten 1 health units. He doesn't have so much movement to where it's impossible to get him, but he has a niche use, and he threatens 1 health units, forces your opponent to kill this, and if they don't, you get a unit. Has counter strike, so even if another 2 gold unit kills it, it usually trades back. So I would just say very nice, simple B tier. Flanker, fucking goddamn awful. Simply put, he kills ranged units, but he does a really fucking terrible job at it. Just because for 2 health, let's just take Longbow Archer. Longbow Archer shoots Goblin Flanker as soon as he walks in range. And the Archer usually has something in front of it, so the Flanker doesn't just immediately kill the Longbow Archer. So the fact that range units can still somehow beat a flanker in combat. Just baseline, just makes flanker, I would say, just completely unusable. He does no damage to any other unit other than range units. Uh, I think he needs either an extra health or evasion one or something, but he's just terrible in my opinion. Goblin Archer, I would say, is A. Um, I think you should at least have a couple in each army. Being able to snipe important one health units is very good. Chip damage, very cheap chip damage. Don't care if you don't care if it dies right away. Uh, just very nice to run around and weaken units up, and then have your other Gath units run in and finish them off. I think archers, at least two of in every list, in my opinion. Archer, I would say he is B. Specifically because for Carthul, for Battlefield, I think this is just his best option. You get a 4-power charger. You can if the enemy doesn't kill it, you can Battle Fury it again and do the same thing, unlike other units. But even by itself, it's not terrible. Just because you can like put it behind a unit that you think is gonna die, and then it shoots it for 3 damage. It's not terrible, but I think it's mainly just because Battle Fury incredibly increases its efficiency, and it's not completely dog water when it's by itself. Crag Vulture, again, I'm putting him in D. You learn pretty quickly that you really you don't really want your units to be injured. Because it's weird because Crag Vulture is like a weird assassin unit. It wants to finish off weak units. But all the units that it wants to kill either have 1 health so it can't charge, or it's gonna have more than 2 health so it can't. So you don't want to just run it in there. Like, for example, let's take a look at like a knight. If a knight's at 1 health, they're not just gonna keep it at 1 health. So who cares? Something like a crossbowman, it's either gonna have 2 health, it's either gonna have full health or it's gonna die. Usually for like crossbowmen. So Vulture just has so many weird implications to where it's like, oh my god, it just seems so terrible. The reason it's not the worst unit is because you can Battle Fury it. Maybe there are some like burn things you can do with Crag Vulture, but it just doesn't do the damage I want it to do, and just very easy to play around. It just not doesn't seem like a very good unit to me. Grunt, I would put Grunt in A as well. I think Grunt have at least 2 in every list, just because it's essentially a very incredibly good bodyguard. Late game, it's not terrible. It's 3 damage and 4 health. Just being able to use it as like a hey take damage kind of guy is very good. So mainly just because Grunt's stats are incredibly good is why I put him in A tier. If you remember an Air Guard list, I put Swordsman in D, and that's mainly because Grunt is 1 cheaper and has allied pathing. Um, Grunt can very easily, for just 1 extra gold, there's a huge difference between a Swordsman and a Grunt. Grunt kind of fits a role Gath doesn't have. Swordsman has other options, but Grunt can very easily just say, hey, I'm here to just be stats, and that's okay for Gath. Skorg Hellion, I'm gonna put him in C. He really works for 2 units as Battle Fury and Troll Shaman specifically. But other than that, you really don't want to run a Hellion. It dies to literally anything. Even if you just use it for 4 damage on a unit, it pretty much is gonna die right after. I doubt it's gonna finish something off with it being in melee combat and it not dying right away. So it's more of a combo piece, but it's a very strong combo piece. But I would say baseline, it's just not good. At least Skorg Archer can kind of be used on its own and not be terrible. But yeah, Skull Kellion's mostly just a combo piece. Warlock. I think this is Gath's best card in the game for one simple reason. Warlock is your only source of disables. He's the only one that can root, silence, like disarm. It's the only one that has any form of disables. It's the only one that has a silence. It's the only one that has a root. For that specific reason, you need to take a Warlock if you want to disable the enemy. There is no other option. So for that very specific reason, I say Warlock is S plus tier. It's their best card in the game. Because if you're looking at your list like, oh, I need disable, well, you have to run Warlock. There's no other option. Plus, its stats are just alright. 5 gold. Doesn't have terrible fighting stats. But yeah, it's just because since this is Gath's only source of disable, I have to put an S plus tier because there's no other option for it. I guess you can say like War, kinda, and I guess there's Scorch Sorcerer's Brutality, but those are not immediate. I would say War isn't really a disable. Brutality requires setup, so if you just want to say, hey, I need to root this guy right now, Warlock's the only option. Hatchling, I would say, is B. It's just a very nice unit. It's able to easily flank around, snipe backline units. Just dealing 2 magic damage is pretty good. Stats aren't very good, I would say, but for 5 gold, you're just using it to deal 2 damage, hopefully twice. And if you do that, then I think it's done its job. But yeah, it's very good because it's magic damage. It's very fast, and it's very fast with flying and 3 movement. In fact, with the ability can be 4 range, it makes it very good at what it does. Trench Digger, I would say Trench Digger is B. Trench Digger has the potential of just winning you the game. In a sea of just pure aggression, Trench Digger is your only real defensive option. And he does it very good. He's going to sit in one spot and your opponent is not going to kill him unless it's literally the last unit. So I'd say Trench Digger is B tier because if you want a defensive unit, he's going to do it incredibly well. Warg Rider. I would say Warg Rider is A simply because it's kind of like Gath's Knight. It's just it's kind of cheap, so you can run multiple of these very easily. Stats are pretty good. There's not much to say. You can pretty much want to run at least 2 of these in every list. You might draft 1 to 2. You can even draft 3 if you really want to. It's just a very solid all-around unit, so I'd put him in A. Troll Shaman. Sadly, I'm going to have to put him in C. It's because, for one really simple reason, it's so easy to play around Troll Shaman's buff. Like me, I'm the one person who's probably run Troll Shaman the most. There's just so many ways to play around it. The fact that the unit dies at the end of the round immediately makes the gold efficiency on this unit like way worse. 5 mana is such a clunky mana for him to have. It's just, for 6 gold, kind of seems way too expensive too. It's good because it pretty much enables the ability to kill any unit in the game in like with just 1 unit, which is incredibly powerful. So that's why it's not D tier. But it's just, there's so many ways to play around it. It's just, it seems so awful unless you really know what you're doing with them. So I put him in C tier for that reason. Troll Doctor, C tier for the same reason. It's just 6 gold is so expensive for a healer. He only has 3 mana. Compare that to Priest. It's more expensive with less uses. Sure, it has combat stats, but you're not taking him for combat. You're using him to heal stuff and to remove debuffs. And he's, like, if you really need to, sure, you can take him, but I just think he can use, like, an extra mana or a gold decrease or something, just so that he doesn't seem completely bad to take, in my opinion. But It's not terrible, I guess, but I just think he could be better. Warg Archer. I would say a Warg Archer is B. Similar to Warg Rider, kind of, I can see you taking him in every list. I just think Warg Rider is slightly better, just because 3 movement charging is a very, he's the cheapest option you have. And also, just because for Warg Archer, there is Hatchling in a way, there's Goblin Archer in a way, so there is some competition for Warg Archer. But there's not really any competition for Warg Rider, but it's still pretty good. It's a very solid unit. Vesuvian Archer, I would say is either C or D. I would say C, just because I can see it being good. If you're against like a battering ram or a thorn elemental, I think Archer is incredibly good. But its real main issue is that it's got 3 health. Everything that every single generic 3 damage 3 movement charger just kills this before it gets any value off. Its death to burn is literally useless. It might as well not even be there. It doesn't do anything. I think it could use like an extra health or something, or attack applies +1 burn. Just something to where it's just slightly better. But again, I can see it being useful. I just wish it was better slightly. Sorcerer, I think Sorcerer is B. It's a very good supporting unit. I honestly wish Enrage was still able to use round 1, but can't win every battle. Brutality is very good for stuff like Goblin Archer, Warg Archer, just all these generic ranged units, just because you can run in. Like for example, Goblin Archer you can give it Brutality, and then you can run in and shoot like a Black Dragon, and then Black Dragon is exhausted, and you've got such a huge gold swing. The real main issue is that it's got 1 health, so it dies really easily, and Enrage requires you to be 2 range away from the unit. So after you enrage, it's essentially gonna die. So you have to really get a good enrage off for it to be worth it. But brutality's, I would mainly say is its main use of it. Use brutality twice and then enrage something, then it dies. So I would say it's not terrible, but it's not in every list, I would say. Troll Berserker, I would also say C, just because, sure, it's got 4 power in charging, but then it's health to 3, so it's just gonna die afterwards to most things. So I also, if you compare it to Warg Rider, it's basically the same unit. Yeah, like I said, sure, it can have 4 power, but then it just dies right away. There's not really anything you'd want to charge for power and then just have it immediately die. I think there's better options. Like, you might as well just run a Hellion, or might as well just run an Archer, and then, like, Carthul's Battle Fury. Or if you're running Argog, you have Argog. So, Troll Berserker just has this really weird niche where I think it could be slightly reworked or whatnot. Disruptor, I'm saying it's the worst goddamn unit in the game. I don't see a single use for Disruptor. It doesn't have charging, which Gath really wants. Sure, it has spell proof, but it's so bad that you don't want to use any abilities on it anyway. Sure, it has backstab, but it doesn't have any mobility tricks to get to like move and then backstab something. It has 5 health, which is alright, but all the units that you want to backstab deal like 5 or more damage, so whatever. And it sure has mana burn too, but that's so bad. Like, if you compare it to the Silverglade Ranger, hold on. If you just compare it to the Sylvan version, it is just worse in every single way. Sylvan has mobility tricks, so you can get it where you want it to be. The spell proof on the Ranger is actually good because it's not complete dog water. You'd actually would want to like root it or disarm this unit, and break is infinitely better than mana burn too. I think Disruptor got such a such the short end of the stick. It's so disappointing. I really want Disruptor to be good. I think the mana burn's such a cool unit. The anti-mage aesthetic looks awesome. I just don't think it's good in any single way, shape, or form. Uh, I really wish it was better, but I think it's just honestly the worst unit in the game. At least for these units, they're cheap to where it's like you can find a way to use them. But this is an 8 gold unit, and it doesn't seem like any play because it seems just so bad. Like, I don't know. Crag Wyvern, I would say is B. This Crag Wyvern's in a weird spot because it's better to just have in your kingdom and have your opponent see it than to actually play it, in my opinion. Because once they see it, they have to suddenly draft in a way to where Crag Wyvern doesn't just immediately win you the game. But otherwise, I guess it's not terrible if you just on its own. It's kind of just like a slightly faster Warg Rider. I would rather have a cheaper Warg Rider than a faster one. But Crag Wyvern's the paramount assassin unit in the entire game. So many units have to be careful just because Crag Wyvern exists. Just having one in your kingdom will force opponents to be very careful, and it can win you the game if you can snipe a really good unit with it. So yeah, I would say he's B. He was B. Slingshot. I'd actually put Slingshot in B for one simple reason. I think Slingshot's damage potential is off the charts. The fact Slingshot just says, hey, double something's damage from a very far range away is what makes him so good. Obviously, not every list is going to run him. It's a very niche list, but I think Slingshot is honestly what makes the sacrifice archetype incredibly good, just because the potential of it just saying, hey, I'm going to kill a black dragon for 4 gold is incredibly strong. The fact that the damage output it can do is insane is why I would do it. Plus, it's the only 3 range archer Gath has, so it's not terrible in that regards. I think it's good enough to where it's out of C, but I don't think it's a must include. It's a very niche unit, but I think it's good enough to where it's in B. Hellbear. I would also say, I think Hellbear could be an A. Just because it's very good in its regards. It has 6 health, 3 damage is good, roar is really good. Because you can push unit into your other units, have them kill it. But I think Hellbear's in A tier. I think having just one is incredibly powerful. And I think it provides good utility, and the stats are beefy enough to where it can brawl with some other units. Cave Troll. Cave Troll's B. This is the quintessential I'm gonna beat the shit out of you kind of unit. 8 health, which is incredibly good for 9 gold. 5 power, which is incredibly good for 9 gold. I guess it's just, if this walks up to something, it's gonna beat the shit out of you, and it's gonna do good. Really nothing else to say. If this gets next to you, it's gonna beat the shit out of you. Manticore, again, I would say is B. I think a big portion of to why I think Manticore is as good as this is just because it has 3 movement flying for a tank unit. Most like tank units only have like 2 movement, and they don't have any like ways to help its mobility. The fact that it has flying and 3 movement means it can, if you really want to, it can fly right into the enemy's line and be a problem because physical damage between 4, not a lot of things want to kill it. If the enemy doesn't have very good magic damage, like if they bring Paladin instead of a Tempest Mage or Sunblade as their way of dealing with it, you can just fly this into the enemy's line and cause havoc because then all of a sudden, oh, I can't kill it because I'm going to kill myself more. But I also want to kill it because it's in the middle of my enemy. It's in the middle of my formation. But if there is magic damage, Manticore does fall off pretty heavily, so that's why I put it in B. But it's just an insanely good unit, similar to Cave Troll. It's just solid. Charbelcher. I'm going to put it in C for one simple reason. It's slow. Gath really doesn't want to be slow. I wish Charbelcher could work better, but the fact that it only has 2 movement, the fact that it only has 3 power, sure 7 health and health regen one's good, but it's very easy for the enemy to just shoot it with archers a lot. Belch, they can easily play around Belch. It has to move next to something, next to at least 2 units. Then you have to go first, and it has to Belch, which that might not even be worth it. It's just, I just wish it had slightly better mobility. It's not terrible. Don't get me wrong. It's not like completely garbage stats. And if the enemy has a lot of magic resist, all of a sudden Charbelcher can die. So that's why it keeps that at D tier. But I think it could use a little bit of help. Fire Fist Minotaur. I'm also going to put in C. The main issue I have with Minotaurs, with the Minotaurs, is that it doesn't charge 3 movement or 3 hexes away. It can only charge 2 hexes away. And I think that's really what makes Minotaur feel super bad to play. All the enemy has to do is to play 3 hexes away, and they've essentially neutralized the Minotaur for the round. If Minotaur moves up, and it's gonna instantly get shot or killed that round, hopefully. So it's really just gonna be like, I'm gonna deal 4 damage and then die. So I just feel like Minotaur, if Minotaur had 3 movement charging, I think he would be A tier, but since he doesn't, it's just blah. Same thing for the Iron Hoof too. Same thing. The only difference is this says Trample. Trample could put in A tier, but again, I just think it doesn't have 3 movement charging, so I think it moves too slow for what you want. I don't know why it's how it is, but I think if it just had 3 movement charging, I'd put it in A tier. Not too strong, but it's actually solid. Crag Behemoth, I'd say is B. This is, again, similar to Cave Trollers. I'm going to beat the shit out of you kind of unit. It's the only unit with 6 power, so makes him incredibly good into a lot of stuff. Has Steadfast, he can't be moved, so if he wants to sit in the spot, it's going to sit in that spot. And if you don't have any way of chipping Crag Behemoth down, you just might as well just concede, because Crag's going to win you that game. He's going to beat the shit out of everything, and you're going to win. So yeah, I think B tier. And Black Dragon, I would also put in B tier for one simple reason. He is the most expensive unit in the game, so I can't put him in A tier for that simple reason. Just because you're not going to want to draft him every single time. But he's incredibly strong, don't get me wrong. Flame Sweep is incredibly strong. He's got great stats. It's really hard to stop him from doing one thing, because if you silence him, he's still a 5'10 with 4 movement and flying. If you disarm him, well, he still has Flame Sweep, and he's going to Flame Sweep you and move away. If you root him, he can still Flame Sweep if you're next to him. But yeah, Black Dragon's just an incredibly solid unit. So this is the tier list. Sadly, more C's. There's quite a bit of C's. But they have enough really good units. Units I would say are pretty solid. They're not bad. I just wish these units just had slightly better things going for them, to where, like, if they just have like just one extra like stat or small thing changed to them, they're all going to like B or A. Like these 4 units specifically, these 5 units specifically. Like just a small change, and they're instantly going to like B or A, and so just small tweaks can make Gath just a bit more diverse. I would say just a little more like you can run more units and all that. But anyway, this is just my tier list. You can fight about me in the comments, but this is just what I think. And I'll see you in Sylvan.